If you're a middle manager, you're responsible for results you cannot fully control. The people you need most do not report to you. The decisions that shape your work, your future are made somewhere else. And when something goes wrong, you're probably the first one to blame. I am Sarah Mobahamfad. I'm a leadership advisor and ICF Professional Certified Coach. And in my previous career, before I became a coach, I used to be a manager myself. I worked in construction machinery industry, in supply chain management. Later on, I owned my own business in fashion. Since a few years ago, I've been an executive coach and I have supported hundreds of managers. I find the life of corporate mid-level managers fascinating. And middle management positions are built on paradoxes and competing priorities. And that is what I'm going to talk about in this video. Last year, I recorded a podcast episode with my friends Anisa and Pragati. All three of us have been managers at some point. Most of the people listening to the podcast are middle managers. And since then, I felt 30 minutes was not enough. There was so much left to talk about. And since that podcast episode, I have coached more middle managers than ever, mostly in science, tech, engineering, and supply chain sectors. And clients often bring problems in coaching and they always think it's unique to them or unique to their company. And it rarely is. As someone who's listened to hundreds of conversations on one-on-one basis, I could say that the same problems come up again and again across this group. And if you look at a large company, there are only a handful of people at C-level, but then there's the rest of the organizations, thousands of people sometimes. Most of the company is made of middle managers. And this group is the backbone of the industry. But then when you look at leadership content and education on internet, it is mostly targeted towards C-level executives, even among the coaching industry. Like when you hear someone's an executive coach, you probably think you have to be a CEO to go talk to them. And a lot of these managers do not see themselves as leaders. These people I talk to, sometimes they lead teams of 20, 50, and they still do not call themselves leaders. Many of them, you would be surprised, they never got proper coaching and training like executives on higher level do. And they think leadership skills are some fancy skills one only needs if they are super high level. So when they get stuck in managing people, conflicting expectations, complex environments, uncertain situations, they struggle. They are not equipped with the tools to navigate the situation. Also, they probably got to these positions because of their former performance. They were very, very good at what they did. So they got promoted and that's where they are. And I see this a lot in engineers, scientists, and tech people. They're super smart, highly educated. They started their careers with a lot of ambition, a big vision. But when they get stuck at this mid-level, feeling exhausted, dealing with the sheer amount of tasks or projects, and when they face conflict with team members, peers, or senior management, or when they get rejected for promotions, they try to address it with common sense or another certificate, another course, learning more about what they need. They try to solve the problem with information, but what they need is just some space to integrate what they already know and find their own unique approach to navigate the situation and new behaviors, mindset, and skills. And my clients are mostly middle managers. And when they come to me, they already have tried everything, including chatting with AI for 6 months sometimes, AI as a coach, and they chat with it and they explore different possibilities. What I'm going to share in this video and the next ones is based on what I've heard from clients, real humans in sessions. And my wish is that if you have challenges as a middle manager, you see there are ways for you to change, to move forward, to find meaning and transform this frustration into useful lessons. As a middle manager, between top management and your own team, you have to manage expectations from not only these groups, but also your peers, like other managers on the same level as you. And sometimes these expectations, they contradict each other. People want different things. And you need to manage up and down and across and probably absorb pressure from all of these directions. You will be dealing with politics because guess what? Where there are humans and power and limited resources, There is always politics. You can't run away from it. And communication skills are key. Middle managers are often not just the leader and coach and people managers. They often have some operational activities too. At least the sort of people I deal with, they also have other strategic projects to deal with and initiatives they have to manage personally. And they often have to zoom in and zoom out between the strategic and operational topics. The burnout rate is pretty high among middle managers. And while you might think it is because they have too much to do, too many tasks to deal with, and too many things to carry, this is not the case. It's not because they have too much to do. They often get burnt out because they get too busy. They lose touch with meaning and purpose in their work. Or sometimes they get burnt out because they feel their environment demands them to compromise their values and be someone they are not. I definitely felt that way myself. What annoyed me at times was that sometimes senior leadership wanted to make decisions I did not like at all, but I had to stand behind it and communicate with the team I was working with. And I felt my values were being compromised. I was losing myself and did not know who I was anymore. It is hard to push for initiatives you do not believe in because senior management asks for it. And as a middle manager, you might find yourself stuck between protecting your team and managing your own career, which often depends on your relationship with senior management and fulfilling their expectations. And these two things do not always happen easily together. Being the middle manager means you will be dealing with a lot of paradoxes, competing priorities, and lots of people's topics. Years ago, I used to work in global supply chain management. And as manager, I had all of these challenges I talked about. But those years, I did not know so much about leadership coaching. I assumed executive coaching is only for C-level, and the support I was getting was through mentorship, senior colleagues, my boss, my line managers. And while that was helpful, I noticed today I was absorbing so much of their mindset and limiting beliefs without noticing. Most of what I did as leader was common sense things I have learned along life. I watched my boss, I watched mentors, and other middle managers and some senior leaders. I always assumed I had to solve all my problems myself. I was very young, growing fast, and did not know better. And if I could go back and change one thing, that would be getting leadership coaching before I get the promotion and get new manager coaching in the new leadership role to make my transition easier. And this is something I totally missed out those days. I remember constantly losing myself between what upper management, like higher level management wanted from me and what the team wanted. And very often I felt responsible for results I could not easily control. At times I did not know how to get people to do what I needed. So I did it myself. And I was not very good at delegating, especially when there was resistance. I would do anything to avoid conflict, and working in global supply chain management meant I was naturally in an environment full of conflict, political behavior. You constantly have to negotiate the impossible. And being a young Middle Eastern woman in Swiss engineering and manufacturing environments, often the only woman, that was something that came with its own challenges, but I learned so much. I developed a lot of resilience, and what I have today is really because of that period in my life. I learned it's important to listen to people, make them feel safe and build trust. And I showed I was reliable and that if you worked with me, you got what you needed from me. I did not always have the skills to advocate for myself effectively. I had the courage. I was not shy. I lacked the communication skills and I lacked the mindset. That was the problem. And I regret that I did not seek coaching then. I just wasn't aware of the value of this work. I was blind to some of my subconscious patterns that were making my life hard. I was just accepting that life is hard. So that was also part of the problem. I worked many weekends, many late nights. I traveled constantly. I never prioritized my own comfort. I was extremely careful with the company budget because I believed my well-being did not matter and that I had to work hard to deserve the income and the opportunities I was given. So I'm showing I'm grateful. So that was pretty much my mindset back then. I had massive imposter syndrome, but those days I had no idea about such things. I love the supply chain sector because you will be working with a lot of people from different backgrounds and some amazing people and also some very difficult types. One of the reasons I'm passionate about coaching middle managers these days, that I have the skills to do so, is because I know my old self would have massively benefited from leadership coaching back then. And instead of thinking about getting the right support, I would just look forward to another luxury vacation or just to escape, or I would just find joy in buying designer shoes and handbags those days just to run away from the problems that never disappeared because I was not addressing them at their roots. And luckily, I did receive amazing coaching support later on from some of the best coaches, and that transformed my life and my career. I'm in a very different place today, but coaching middle managers has become a passion because I do not want you to suffer as much as I did and have a much faster and smoother growth journey. I mostly work with clients in science, tech, engineering, supply chain sector, and the managers in these companies often have MBA, a master's degree, a PhD, some are medical doctors. So they are highly educated people who started out ambitious with big dreams and a clear idea of where they were going since they were young. So they arrived here and here is where it stopped. The amount of talent at this level, in middle management level, is remarkable. So is the experience. And still, they are not where they always thought they would be. They are overwhelmed, they're exhausted, there is very little time left for their own leadership development, and is exactly what keeps them where they are. Maybe you've heard about the Japanese concept ma. Is the negative space, a pause in time or an interval. It is not just an empty void. It is an intentional, meaningful gap that supports the shape, balance, and life to the things around it. For example, when there is music, there is silence in between. That silence creates the melody. Or, when you have these windows, there is like some empty spaces for the life to come in. So it's a meaningful empty space. So I really loved this concept when I got to know about it. And I bet your work calendar needs some ma. The first time I heard about it, I just found it fascinating. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong. And a calendar with no gap in it, no white spaces, cannot absorb anything unplanned. So every surprise, every new event becomes a crisis, and there is no room left to think, no room for reflection. So you need to construct these empty spaces deliberately in your daily life. And by the way, I have a free guide around creating time and a space for growth. You can easily download it. It's free. The link, I will put it in the show notes down below. So when you have no space, there is no progress. And the longer there is no progress, the more frustrated and ambitious a person becomes. Because, when you're ambitious, you really want more. And when it's not happening, so it adds to your sort of, dissatisfaction and frustration. You would feel behind, you face an identity crisis, you feel you're losing purpose and meaning and your identity. You would feel scared of the thought of building a personal brand as, your employer have always been the only brand you could feel part of. So all of this, doing these big things feels scary, especially if you do not have that space to work on them. And those who do burnout are usually not the ones with the most tasks. Burnout in middle managers comes from how the work is managed and from a misalignment in values and the challenges in relationships with other humans around them. I've lost count of the number of times a client comes to me and mentions the toxic culture or narcissistic boss. It's always someone else's fault. And I'm not here to dismiss bad behavior, but if you're equipped with the right tools, skills, and mindset, you can also manage bad behavior without getting hurt that much. And, if you're a manager at this level, I know you started with a vision, you have a set of values and ideas about who you wanted to become. At least you had it one day. And now you have arrived at a stop where the boss is either not stopping for you or never arriving. And this is very painful. The last 2 years in Switzerland, I have worked with many people, especially in pharma and IT, through waves of layoffs, reorganizations. A lot of my clients lost jobs and they had to find new ones. And this was not easy. They had to navigate uncertainty on top of everything else. There was a lot of talks around the future of middle management jobs. Management is disappearing, all of these sort of talks. And there's also this conversation about flattening organizations. Middle management roles are expensive and some functions may be replaced by AI one day. That conversations are happening and they also add more to the fear and uncertainty of this group. But this position was never only task management. Middle managers coach their people. They help others develop their careers. They are enablers. It depends on the culture and the organization, and that part does not disappear. The clients who built that strength were the ones who navigated the challenges, like being very patient, going on a lot of interviews, when I look at the social media and coaching industry, I see coaching for middle management is not promoted the way it is for C-level executives. You hear about executive coaching everywhere, coaching leaders, coaching CEOs. Senior executives get coaching and they usually have a clear plan for their path. Middle managers are the group that's most exposed to pressure and the least trained in capacity, resilience, managing the nervous system. And you would be surprised to see how so many of those C-level professionals are having much better mental health and lifestyle despite having bigger, higher stake responsibilities just because of the support they get. They all get coaching, they have advisors, they have help around, like all kinds of administrative topics. So why not create similar space for yourself regardless of being a CEO? And you might say, no, but they have a lot of resources. No, actually you could create a version of that space for you too, because that model works. Most of the managers I work with have a big heart for people and their team is their priority. They do not want to become the leader who uses their team as like a career step. They're the one who will do anything to please senior management, even when it frustrates the people below. They genuinely want to empower their team. What they find hard is doing that while also building influence upwards so that senior leaders support and advocate for them. Because without that advocacy, you cannot protect your team either. This is exactly what I cover in the next video. The link is in the screen and description. See you soon.